If you've ever wondered whether at-home hormone testing actually works, you need to hear this first. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which hormone tests are worth your money, which ones are a waste, and the one thing nobody in the testing industry wants you to understand. And I'm going to start with the one that might surprise you the most. Okay, here's the deal. The at-home hormone testing market exploded during the last 5 years. In 2019, the global hormone testing market was valued at roughly $1.2 billion. By 2027, analysts project it'll hit 2.8 billion. That's more than doubling in less than a decade. Companies saw demand and they flooded in. Some of them are legitimate. Some of them are selling you expensive urine with a wellness label. And here's why this matters for you specifically. If you're trying to understand mood swings, irregular periods, weight gain, low libido, fatigue that won't quit, those symptoms send millions of people to Google every single day. At-home tests promise answers, no doctor visit, no waiting room. Spit in a tube, mail it in, get results in a week. Sounds perfect, right? Except the fine print tells a different story. Let's start with what actually works. The most scientifically validated at-home tests look for specific hormones with well-established reference ranges. Your thyroid panel is a great example. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is one of the most reliable markers you can test. If your TSH is above 4.0, that's a strong signal something's off with your thyroid function. Companies like Let's Get Checked and Health Labs offer thyroid panels for around $60 to $80, and the accuracy is comparable to what you'd get from a lab your doctor orders. That's point number one, the easy win. A TSH test at home is legitimate. It gives you real data. It can catch hypothyroidism before you spend another year thinking you're just tired all the time. That's worth knowing. But here's where it gets more complicated. Some companies test for 15, 20, sometimes 30 different hormones from a single sample. They charge $200, $300. They hand you a beautiful PDF with graphs and color-coded ranges. And then what? Most people stare at that PDF and have no idea what to do with it. Dr. Sarah Johnson, an endocrinologist at the Cleveland Clinic, put it bluntly in a 2023 interview with the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology. She said, and I'm quoting here, quote, "Most of these multi-hormone panels measure hormones that fluctuate wildly throughout the day and without context, without knowing if you're fasting, stressed, or at a specific point in your cycle. The numbers are almost meaningless." End of quote. That hit different, didn't it? Think about cortisol for a second. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. It peaks in the morning. We're talking 10 to 20 micrograms per deciliter, and it drops to almost nothing by midnight. If you test your cortisol at 8 a.m. and again at 8 p.m., those numbers will look completely different. Both are normal. But a single cortisol test at 3 p.m., it tells you exactly nothing you can act on. Yet companies sell cortisol tests all day long, and people buy them thinking they're getting insight into their stress levels. They almost never are. That's the level up, by the way. The easy win was knowing that a basic thyroid panel actually works. The level up is understanding that the more hormones a company claims to test, the less useful most of those numbers actually are. If this is making sense so far, hit that subscribe button. I've got the part you've been waiting for coming up next, and it's going to change how you think about this entire industry. So here's what nobody tells you. At-home hormone testing isn't the problem. The problem is what happens after you get results. Almost no at-home company provides clinical interpretation. They give you numbers. They give you ranges. They do not give you a doctor who can look at your entire picture, your symptoms, your medical history, your current medications, and say, this is what you actually need to do next. And that changes everything. Here's a real example. A woman named Marissa, I'll protect her last name, spent $400 on an at-home hormone panel through a company called Thorne. The test came back showing low progesterone and elevated FSH. She panicked. She spent 2 weeks on hormone-focused forums reading about early menopause. She started supplement regimens. She changed her entire diet. Then she went to her actual gynecologist, who ran the same labs through insurance. The doctor's interpretation? Marissa had tested on day 3 of her cycle, when FSH naturally spikes, and her progesterone was measured at the wrong time entirely to be meaningful. The numbers were normal. She spent $400 and 2 weeks in anxiety for results that meant nothing. That story isn't unique. It's the rule, not the exception. Now, here's the part I've been building toward. The one thing the testing industry doesn't want you to understand. At-home testing works best as a starting point, not a final answer. The people who get the most value from these tests are the ones who use the results to have a smarter conversation with their doctor, not the ones who replace the doctor entirely. Think about that for a second. In 2022, a study published in the Nature Medicine Digital Health Journal tracked 2,800 people who used direct-to-consumer hormone testing. Of those 2,800 people, 41% followed up with a healthcare provider after getting their results. Of those who followed up, 68% said the at-home results gave them a more productive visit. They knew what to ask. They had specific numbers. They weren't starting from zero. But the 59% who didn't follow up, they made more dietary changes, bought more supplements, and reported lower satisfaction with their health outcomes after 6 months. They had data. They didn't have a plan. That gap is where everything goes wrong. So what's the actual answer here? Here's my honest take. If you have specific symptoms, fatigue, irregular cycles, unexplained weight changes, a basic at-home thyroid panel or vitamin D test is a reasonable first step. It costs less than a specialist copay. It gives you real numbers. But you need to budget for the follow-up. Set aside $50 to $100 for a telehealth visit where you can walk someone through your results. Or better yet, use the results to push your primary care doctor to run the same labs through your insurance. Because here's the thing. Most insurance plans cover standard hormone panels if your doctor orders them. You're often paying out of pocket for convenience what you could get covered. Now, what about the companies that promise to interpret your results for you? Some of them do offer physician review. LabCorp's own division, for example, offers physician-signed interpretations for certain panels. Everlywell has nurse practitioners available for follow-up consultations for an additional fee. These options exist, but they add up. A $90 test becomes a $200 experience real fast. And that brings us to the question that matters most. Is it worth it for specific, validated tests? Yes. For broad hormone panels with beautiful PDFs and no clinical context? No. For anything that promises to decode your entire hormonal landscape in one test? Run. The human endocrine system doesn't work that way. No single sample captures it. If you're dealing with real symptoms, you deserve real answers, not a pretty chart, not a marketing message dressed up as medical insight. Real answers start with smart testing and smarter follow-up. Here's what I want you to remember. 1. Thyroid and vitamin D tests at home are legitimate and worth doing if your doctor isn't already running them. 2. The more hormones a company claims to measure, the less meaningful most of those numbers become without clinical context. 3. Your results are only as valuable as what you do next. Data without a plan is just expensive anxiety. A plan with data is when things actually change. If this saved you from spending money on the wrong test, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe. I've got more videos coming on understanding your body without the fluff. See you in the next one.